Imagine a world in 1862, a world at war, a world that believed it already knew the limits of human potential. And then, two black twins were born who would defy everything. Their story is one of brilliance, mystery, and secrets that almost vanished from history. In the year 1862, the world was already burning. Cannons roared across battlefields. Nations were divided by blood, belief, and power. In America, the Civil War raged on, and slavery still chained millions of lives. Science claimed it understood humanity. Society believed it knew who was superior and who was not. And then, quietly, without warning, two children were born. No newspapers announced their arrival, no bells rang. No one could have imagined that these newborn twins, born into a world stacked against them, would one day challenge everything people believed about intelligence, race, and human potential. They were black twins, born in 1862. At first, there was nothing remarkable about them, at least nothing that history thought worth recording. No royal blood, no wealth, no privilege, just two infants entering a brutal, unequal world that had already decided what they could never become. But from the very beginning, something felt different. Those who were close to them later said the twins were unusually alert. Their eyes followed movement with strange intensity. They reacted to sounds faster than other children. While most infants cried without awareness, these twins seemed to observe. People dismissed it at first. Coincidence, they said. Imagination, others whispered. After all, in the 19th century, the idea that black children, especially twins born during slavery, could possess exceptional intelligence was unthinkable to many. The beliefs of the time were rigid, cruel, and deeply flawed. Yet as weeks turned into months, the differences became impossible to ignore. The twins developed faster than expected. Their coordination was advanced. Their curiosity was relentless. They reacted not just to people, but to patterns, sounds, movements, changes in their surroundings. It unsettled those who noticed, because what they were seeing didn't match the rules they believed governed the world. By the time the twins were old enough to interact meaningfully with others, whispers had begun to spread. These weren't whispers of admiration yet, but of confusion.
How can children like this be so aware? Why do they understand so quickly? Questions no one wanted to ask out loud. In 1862, society was obsessed with classification. People were measured, ranked, and labeled, often to justify cruelty. Intelligence, as defined by the so-called science of the era, was believed to belong to only a few, and certainly not to those born on the margins. So when early observers began to notice the twins' unusual abilities, it created discomfort rather than celebration. Something was wrong, or at least something challenged what they believed to be right. Some thought the twins were merely imitating behavior. Others claimed their actions were exaggerated by sympathetic observers. A few went further, suggesting that what appeared to be intelligence was something unnatural, something that required explanation. Because when a belief system is threatened, it rarely adapts quietly. As the twins grew, their awareness became impossible to hide. They learned faster than children years older. They responded to instruction with unsettling speed. They seemed to grasp ideas without repetition. People began to watch them, not with encouragement, but with suspicion. And that was when the attention of educated men began to turn toward them. Men who believed in measurement. Men who believed in tests. Men who believed that science could explain everything. To them, the twins were not children. They were becoming a question that science wanted to answer, a question society wasn't ready to hear. Because if the twins were truly gifted, if their abilities were real, then the problem wasn't the children. The problem was the world that believed they shouldn't exist. And soon, that world would try to test them. But what those tests would reveal would leave even the experts without answers. If this story fascinates you so far, hit that like button, share it with your friends, comment what you think might happen to the twins, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss where the world begins to notice their incredible abilities. What happens when the world notices something it wasn't ready to see? For these two black twins, their extraordinary abilities could not stay hidden for long, and soon curiosity turned into disbelief. As the twins grew, it became impossible to pretend they were ordinary. What had once been dismissed as coincidence now became unmistakable. Their learning was fast, their awareness uncanny. They seemed to understand the world in ways children years older could not. They listened, they watched, they remembered everything. Those closest to them began to notice patterns that unsettled them. Tasks meant for older children were completed with ease. Instructions needed only to be given once. When spoken to, the twins didn't just respond, they anticipated questions, solved problems, and demonstrated reasoning far beyond their years. It was astonishing, it was confusing, and it was dangerous. In 1862, intelligence was more than a personal trait. It was a measure of worth, a tool to enforce societal hierarchy. And the idea that these children, born into circumstances that society deemed limiting, could excel, shattered assumptions. Some tried to explain it away. "They are only mimicking," one adult whispered. "Children repeat what they hear," another insisted. But repetition alone could not explain the twins' reasoning, their foresight, their ability to recognize patterns no one had shown them. They didn't just ask what, they asked why. And that made people uncomfortable. Word began to spread beyond their immediate surroundings. Visitors came, some curious, some skeptical. A few arrived hoping to prove that the rumors were false, but almost everyone left perplexed. The twins' abilities were undeniable. Their intelligence was real. What disturbed the adults most was not just their speed or memory, it was their understanding. In a world where intelligence was assumed to follow predictable lines based on race, class, and birth, the twins defied every expectation.
This was the era of pseudoscience and rigid hierarchies. Society was not ready for children who could challenge its assumptions. Some saw opportunity, others saw threat. The twins were no longer merely children, they were symbols of possibility in a world that demanded limitation. And symbols in that era were dangerous. People began to observe them more closely. Every action was analyzed, every mistake magnified. Successes were questioned, as if acknowledging them might unravel everything society believed to be true. Eventually, the attention of men trained in science and measurement reached the twins' world. Men who trusted tests, numbers, and rules more than instinct. Men who believed intelligence could be quantified, categorized, and controlled. To them, the twins were not children. They were anomalies, and anomalies demanded explanation. The stage was set. The world's eyes were on them. Not all eyes were kind. Not all eyes were fair. But one thing was clear. The twins' abilities could no longer remain a secret. The question now was, would the world recognize their brilliance or try to suppress it? If you're amazed by these twins' stories so far, hit like, comment what you think of their incredible abilities, share this video with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss where the tests begin and the world's experts are left speechless. What happens when the world tries to measure a mind that refuses to be measured? For these two black twins, the tests that followed would leave even the most confident experts completely speechless. By the time the tests began, the twins were no longer just a curiosity. They were a challenge.
Men trained in observation and measurement arrived with notebooks, instruments, and confidence. They believed intelligence could be captured on paper, reduced to numbers, explained through method. Whatever mystery surrounded the twins, they were certain it would disappear under proper examination. The first tests were simple: memory exercises, pattern recognition, basic problem-solving tasks meant for children far older. The observers expected hesitation, confusion, guesswork. Instead, they witnessed precision. The twins completed tasks quickly, sometimes before instructions were fully explained. They recognized patterns others missed. They recalled details with unsettling accuracy. When presented with new problems, they did not panic. They paused, they reasoned, and then they answered correctly, again and again. Observers exchanged anxious glances. Notes were rewritten. Instructions were repeated just to ensure nothing was misunderstood. The twins were tested separately, then together. The results did not change. If anything, they became more impressive. More complex tests followed: logical sequencing, abstract reasoning, tasks designed to confuse and overwhelm. But the twins adapted as if difficulty itself were part of the puzzle. What disturbed the observers most was not speed, it was understanding. The twins didn't rely on memorization alone. They explained their reasoning. They anticipated follow-up questions. Sometimes they reached conclusions that testers themselves had not considered. This was not mimicry. This was cognition.
The room grew quieter with each test. Confidence began to erode. The men conducting the evaluations repeated the experiments, adjusted conditions, and even altered their methods. They suspected error, not in the children, but in the process. Surely something had been overlooked. Yet no matter how the tests were changed, the outcome remained the same. The twins consistently performed beyond expectations. Whispers spread among the observers. Some spoke of natural genius. Others suggested coincidence stretched too far to remain coincidence. A few grew uncomfortable, questioning whether the results should even be recorded, because these findings didn't just challenge assumptions, they threatened them. In an era when intelligence was believed to be limited by birth and background, the twins stood as living contradictions. Their abilities demanded either a revision of belief or a rejection of evidence, and evidence, when inconvenient, is often treated as the enemy. Some testers pushed harder. They introduced unfamiliar problems, unfamiliar concepts, even deliberately misleading information. They wanted confusion. They wanted failure. What they saw instead was adaptability. The twins adjusted their thinking, corrected themselves, recognized false assumptions, and revised their answers. These were skills associated with advanced reasoning, not childhood instinct. The men had expected results. They had not expected resistance from reality itself. As reports were compiled, a strange tension filled the room. The findings were undeniable, yet difficult to accept. How could children like these, born into circumstances society deemed limiting, exhibit such intellectual capacity? There were no charts prepared for this, no categories, no explanations that fit comfortably within existing theories. Some observers later wrote that the results were impossible to explain by conventional understanding. Others noted that the twins displayed awareness inconsistent with established expectations. Those words were careful, cautious, because publishing such conclusions carried risk. To acknowledge the twins' abilities was to admit that the accepted understanding of intelligence was incomplete, or worse, wrong. The tests revealed one undeniable fact. No matter how they were measured, separated, or challenged, the twins remained consistent. Their intelligence was real, and it could not be dismissed. But instead of celebration, the conclusion brought silence. Because if the results were accepted, the world would have to ask itself a dangerous question. What if the limits placed on human potential were never real? And if that were true, Then what else had society been wrong about? The stage was set for doubt, fear, and attempts to silence their brilliance. If you're shocked by these twins' abilities, hit that like button. Comment what you would do if you witnessed such genius. Share this story and subscribe so you don't miss where doubt and fear begin to shadow their incredible story.
What happens when the truth is too powerful for the world to accept? For the two black twins, their brilliance became more dangerous than inspiring as doubt and fear began to overshadow their story. The tests had proved it. The twins' intelligence was undeniable, yet instead of admiration, a quiet tension filled the room. Recognition did not follow. Instead, hesitation and fear replaced curiosity, because the truth had become inconvenient. Among the men who had observed the twins, a divide formed. Some believed the findings should be shared openly, that knowledge, no matter how uncomfortable, deserved to be known. Others argued that releasing such information would cause confusion, controversy, even upheaval. They spoke carefully. This could be misunderstood. People aren't ready for this. It challenges too much. But beneath the caution was a deeper fear. Accepting the twins' abilities meant questioning the foundations of long-held beliefs. The rules used to rank, separate, and limit human potential suddenly seemed uncertain, and uncertainty in that world was dangerous. Gradually, doubt began to creep in, not about the twins, but about those reporting their abilities. Were they too impressed? Too eager to see what others could not? Some claimed the twins were unique anomalies, rare exceptions that proved nothing. The focus shifted, not on understanding, but on containment. Meetings were held behind closed doors. Reports were softened, rewritten, or filed away. Strong conclusions were replaced with ambiguity. What had once been documented with precision became uncertain. Not because the evidence was weak, but because it was too strong.
The twins, unaware of these debates, continued to grow, learn, and explore. For them, thinking was instinct, curiosity was natural. It was the adults who struggled. Some observers distanced themselves entirely. Others continued watching, but not with wonder, rather with concern, as if the twins' brilliance could somehow disrupt the world around them. History has a pattern. When truth threatens power, silence is often chosen over honesty. And silence slowly became the story. Records disappeared, misplaced, or never published. Conversations that once buzzed with urgency were replaced by polite avoidance. The twins, once subjects of fascination, were quietly removed from the spotlight. Their abilities, once extraordinary, were no longer encouraged. They were guided toward invisibility rather than brilliance, their story minimized, their potential constrained. The greatest tragedy was not that the twins failed, it was that the world refused to celebrate their success. Those who had witnessed the tests would later speak cautiously, almost regretfully. They understood too late what had been lost, not merely a discovery, but a chance to rewrite what people thought was possible. And yet, even in silence, the twins' story lingered, haunting those who knew the truth. Because history does not only forget facts, it forgets people. For the twins, the world had chosen doubt and fear over recognition and truth, and that choice would echo for decades to come. The silence surrounding their story would set the stage for the next mystery, their complete disappearance from history. If this story has captured your imagination, hit like, comment what you think the twins felt during this time, share it with friends, and subscribe to Watch, where the twins vanish from history, leaving behind a mystery that refuses to die. What happens when the world cannot accept extraordinary talent? For the two black twins, the recognition they deserved slowly vanished, leaving behind a mystery that still haunts history. After the tests, after the whispers, the twins began to disappear. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but slowly, almost deliberately. Their presence faded from public attention. Mentions in records grew rare. Details became fragmented, shortened, or omitted entirely. What had once been carefully observed was now almost invisible. It was as if history itself had decided to look away. No official statements, no public recognition, no explanation, only gaps. Historians later speculated that the disappearance was the result of the times. The 19th century was unforgiving. Wars, migration, social upheaval, all could swallow lives without a trace. For children born on society's margins, obscurity was common. But the twins were not ordinary. They had been observed, tested, discussed. Their absence feels different, more intentional. Some believe the twins were separated, their bond quietly broken to prevent further attention. Others suggest they were guided into ordinary lives, discouraged from pursuing knowledge or excellence. A few claim they were moved, relocated, or absorbed into communities where their past would never be questioned. None of these accounts can be confirmed. What remains are fragments, hints in letters, second-hand accounts, and oral histories passed down over time. All point to the same conclusion. Whatever became of the twins, the world chose not to remember them. The disappearance reflects not only the twin story, but a pattern in history. When truth threatens comfortable beliefs, it is often suppressed. Stories of brilliance that challenge social norms are quietly erased.
The tragedy is not that we do not know what became of the twins. The tragedy is that their future, their potential, was decided not by their ability, but by the fear of those around them. Yet the story endures. Even without names, without clear records, the twins live on as a symbol. They remind us that intelligence, curiosity, and potential are not limited by birth, race, or circumstance. They are universal. The mystery of their vanishing forces us to ask difficult questions. How many stories were lost because society could not accept them? How many futures were erased before they could begin? And how many truths remain buried, waiting for someone to rediscover them? The twins' disappearance is a silence that speaks loudly. It is not the end of their story. It is a challenge, a call to recognize brilliance wherever it exists, even when it is inconvenient. Though they vanished from historical records, the impact of their story continues. The memory of what they represented refuses to die. The twins did not fail. The world failed to recognize them. And that failure became part of the lesson their story leaves for us today. If this story leaves you wondering what could have been, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, share this video with friends, and subscribe so you don't miss revealing the meaning behind this incredible mystery. What can we learn from a story that was almost forgotten? The story of the two black twins does not end with their disappearance. It begins with a question about human potential, fear, and the truths we choose to ignore. The story of the twins does not truly end with their vanishing. In many ways, that is where it truly begins. History often teaches us what happened, but rarely why. And when stories like this fade into silence, the absence itself becomes a message. The twins may have vanished from records, but the questions they raised remain. Because their story was never just about two gifted children. It was about a world that could not face what they represented. In 1862, society believed intelligence could be predicted, measured, and limited. Entire systems were built on the idea that human potential followed rigid rules. Those rules justified inequality, explained suffering, and made injustice feel logical. And then the twins appeared. They did not argue, they did not protest, they simply existed. And their existence contradicted everything the world believed. The adults around them faced a choice: acknowledge the truth or deny it. Many chose denial.
Silence became easier than acceptance. Fear became stronger than curiosity. Recognition was replaced with containment. And yet, even in obscurity, the twins' story lingered. The tragedy of this story is not that the twins were extraordinary. It is that society could not rise to meet them. Even today, their story resonates. Intelligence and potential are still often judged through narrow lenses. Talent is overlooked when it appears where it is least expected. The twins remind us that brilliance has never belonged to one class, one race, or one era. It exists everywhere. The story also challenges how history is written. History is not always objective, it is selective. Stories that challenge beliefs are minimized, delayed, or erased. What survives is often what is convenient, not what mattered most. Yet some truths refuse to be buried.
The story of the twins survives because it speaks to something universal, the fear of being wrong and the cost of ignoring truth. It reminds us that progress is not only about discovery, it is about acceptance. Perhaps the greatest legacy of the twins is not what they prove to scientists, but what they reveal to us today. Human potential cannot be ranked so easily. Intelligence cannot be owned. History still owes many stories a voice. And the mystery is not unresolved. It is ongoing. Every time we question assumptions, every time we recognize talent where others overlook it, every time we choose curiosity over fear. In that sense, the twins did not disappear. They became a mirror, a reflection of what happens when society encounters truth before it is ready to change, and of what becomes possible when, eventually, it does. Their story continues to be told, not to solve the mystery, but to remind us that some truths are never lost. They are only waiting to be heard. If this story has inspired you, hit the like button. Comment what this story teaches you about human potential, share it with friends, and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories from history that challenge everything we think we know.